Modern medicine is built on a quiet lie. We assume a scratch can never kill us. We treat infection as a temporary inconvenience, but our global shield is decaying. The apocalypse will not arrive as a solar flare. It will not arrive as a nuclear winter. It arrives as a routine procedure that suddenly fails. Imagine a standard cesarean section becoming a fatal gamble. Imagine a simple knee replacement triggering lethal sepsis. This is not a distant problem for the next century. A landmark Lancet study already maps the exact math. Between now and 2050, resistant infections are projected to kill 39 million. That equals 3 direct deaths every single minute. And the bacteria evolving is not the real terror. The true failure is systemic. We are running out of drugs because the market is broken. Developing a drug that saves humanity guarantees financial loss. So the entire pipeline is running dry, and we are approaching the day the shield finally shatters. We take the physical world entirely for granted. We've built towering cities and global supply chains, but modern existence rests on a microscopic truce. That truce began in a messy London laboratory in 1928. Alexander Fleming left a petri dish uncovered. A stray mold spore contaminated the dish. It secreted a chemical that dissolved the surrounding bacteria. That chemical accident became penicillin. It was the ultimate biological cheat code. We conquered the primary cause of human death overnight. Lethal staph infections became trivial inconveniences. The illusion of absolute safety took root immediately. We began treating these miracle chemicals like infinite commodities. We prescribed them for simple viral colds, but the architect of the revolution saw the flaw. Fleming stood at the Nobel podium in 1945. He issued a grim and specific warning. He cautioned that careless underdosing would breed resistant microbes. He described a man whose negligence kills his own wife. He understood a fundamental mechanism of evolution. Exposure without total eradication breeds total resistance. We handed the enemy our exact playbook. We assumed the bacteria would simply surrender, but biological systems never remain static. They adapt to the specific poison you feed them, and they were already engineering their response. Look closely at a single bacterial cell. It is a ruthless, calculating machine. When antibiotics flood the body, the weak cells die. The survivors analyze the exact chemistry of the poison. They begin engineering physical countermeasures immediately. They build efflux pumps inside their cell walls. Think of these pumps as microscopic bouncers. The antibiotic enters the cell to destroy it. The pump grabs the molecule and throws it back out. Other bacteria build enzymes that act as chemical scissors. They hunt the drug and chop it into harmless fragments. But standard evolution takes far too much time. So bacteria discovered a terrifying biological shortcut. It is called horizontal gene transfer. They do not need to reproduce to share their armor. They do not even need to be the same species. Two different pathogens simply bump into each other. One extends a tiny microscopic tube. It copies a circular packet of DNA and slides it across. It is the biological equivalent of a USB flash drive. A drive loaded with stolen military blueprints. Now both pathogens resist our very best weapons. The resistance spreads exponentially across separate bacterial colonies. We accidentally forced their rapid evolution, but we did not stop inside our hospitals. We built massive, unregulated boot camps for them. We assume hospitals consume the world's antibiotics. We picture sick patients resting in sterile beds. In much of the world, that is an illusion. The majority of these vital drugs never touch a human. They are dumped by the ton into factory farms. They are fed to perfectly healthy livestock. Why waste a medical miracle on a healthy pig? Because it forces rapid physical weight gain. It pads the bottom line and lifts profit margins. And it suppresses disease inside brutally cramped cages. This creates the perfect evolutionary pressure cooker. We feed animals constant sublethal doses of our best drugs. It is just enough poison to agitate the bacteria. It is never enough to eradicate the colony. The pathogens mutate rapidly inside the animal gut. Those superbugs spread directly into the local soil. They leach into the surrounding municipal groundwater. They arrive on our grocery store shelves. Some regions finally fought back against this practice. Europe banned growth promoter antibiotics back in 2006. America phased out the same practice in 2017. But enforcement is weak, and global use keeps climbing. Agriculture became a massive training ground for resistance. The bacteria easily outsmarted our biology, but the pharmaceutical industry did something far worse. They studied the math and abandoned the fight. We assume science will simply engineer a solution, and big corporations are developing new shields. But Big Pharma has abandoned the battlefield entirely. They ran the cold economics and quietly retreated. The industry operates on a strict volume-based model. A blockbuster cholesterol pill is taken by millions daily. It generates billions in recurring, reliable revenue. But a new antibiotic is the opposite of profitable. Curing a patient quickly destroys your own customer base. And imagine you build a weapon against resistant bugs. Health agencies will immediately mandate that nobody uses it. They force hospitals to lock it behind glass. It becomes a weapon of absolute last resort. They do this to stop the bacteria adapting, but this creates a catastrophic market paradox. The better your drug works, the less you earn. Look at a biotech startup named Decaying. They raised nearly $800 million in capital. They engineered a revolutionary antibiotic called plasmicin in 2018. It was a genuine triumph against lethal superbugs, but hospitals correctly hoarded it for extreme emergencies. First-year sales came in under $1 million. They filed for bankruptcy in April of 2019. That was barely 10 months after the approval. Success in antibiotics literally equals financial collapse. So the research and development pipeline sits empty. No one is coming to restock our biological armory, and the superbugs are burning through our last inventory. You might assume clever alternatives will rescue us. Scientists are hunting viruses that hunt bacteria. These bacteriophages remain experimental and difficult to scale. Vaccines can prevent some infections before they start, but they cannot cover the full bacterial spectrum. Engineered antibodies show promise inside narrow laboratory settings. None of these are ready to replace antibiotics. They are distant lifeboats for a ship sinking now. The collapse arrives long before the rescue does. Governments did design rescue plans for this exact crisis. Britain tested a Netflix-style subscription to fund antibiotics. America drafted the Pasteur Act to reward new drugs. The fix is known. It dies in committee, so the empty pipeline stays completely empty. This collapse is not a future hypothetical. Drug-resistant tuberculosis already kills people every year. Some strains now resist almost every drug we own. Doctors are running out of options as we speak, and the burden does not fall on everyone equally. The poorest nations absorb the first and hardest blows. Weak supply chains there cannot guarantee working antibiotics. The wealthy world simply has not noticed yet. The collapse does not look like a disaster film. It looks like a quiet Tuesday in a hospital ward. The system snaps under the weight of ESKAPE pathogens. This is a specific group of 6 resistant superbugs. They already haunt the corridors of intensive care. When our final drugs fail, the hospital becomes a trap. Every routine procedure becomes a high-stakes gamble. Look at the harsh reality of modern oncology. Chemotherapy deliberately poisons the body to kill cancer. It wipes out the immune system in the process. Oncologists rely on antibiotics to keep patients alive. Without that shield, the cancer does not kill them. A simple infection from a bedsheet kills them instead. Organ transplants cease to exist on day 1. Surgeons suppress immunity so the body accepts the organ. That vulnerability becomes fatal without protective drugs. Cesarean sections regain the mortality rates of the Victorian era. Mothers begin dying from a procedure we once mastered. Simple knee replacements become unjustifiable biological risks. The entire architecture of modern healthcare crumbles. We are forced back into a brutal physical reality, a reality where the outside world is fundamentally hostile. The collapse of the medical grid rewires human psychology. The physical world becomes a field of invisible landmines. Picture a healthy woman working in her garden. She catches a minor scratch from a thorn. The soil holds a highly resistant strain of bacteria. Within 48 hours, the wound turns necrotic. Her flesh literally begins to die. Doctors throw every last resort drug at the infection. Nothing works. They amputate her entire arm to halt the spread. She barely survives a once trivial daily injury. This is the kind of case clinicians already fear. Now apply that brutal math to your own routine. A paper cut from a delivery box becomes a liability. A child scraping a knee demands a grim assessment. Contact sports vanish. Manual labor becomes an occupation of constant dread. We revert to the mortality metrics of the 19th century. The damage does not stay inside the hospital. A sick and fearful workforce slows every supply chain. Soldiers begin dying from minor battlefield wounds again. Routine global travel starts spreading untreatable strains. Economists project staggering losses across the world economy. Millions could be pushed back into deep poverty. We spent a century believing we conquered the microscopic world, but we only borrowed a temporary shield. The loan is now being called in, and the bacteria are arriving to collect the debt.